Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Path to Abundant Living. I am your moderator, Ryan Ruff. It's great to be back with everybody today on the show. As we always do, we're going to have another great wealth management related conversation alongside my right hand guys, and that is Mr. Matt Nordman and Scott Morrison of Morrison Nordman Wealth Management. Super excited to get into today's conversation with one of our esteemed guests that we're welcoming on today, and that's Dr. Daniel Carlin, the founder and CEO of World Clinic. Big conversation lined up for you guys today where we're going to be diving into the idea of longevity planning and concierge medicine, a lot of really interesting topics that are coming to the forefront of concern and consideration here in today's day and age. So boy, are we excited and grateful to be spending some time with Dr. Carlin here today. But first, let's go ahead and say hi to the guys. Matt, Scott, good to see you guys this morning. How we doing?
Morning, Ryan. Good to see you.
Morning,
Scott.
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, Matt.
How are you doing,
Morning,
Scott?
I'm good.
Morning, fellas. Morning. Well, gentlemen, look, we have Dr. Dan Carlin lying in wait, going to be joining us here in just a moment for today's conversation, but I'll have you guys tee it up for our audience. How come we wanted to sit down with Dr. Carlin today for the audience's sake?
So, Ryan, I believe we all know that health is really important to all of us. I met Dr. Carlin a few years ago as part of a group, mastermind group that we're part of. And I remember a couple of things he talked about. We all know what's our most important asset. And we all think, well, our health. And Dr. Carlin's like, well, it's your pulse. Because if you don't have your pulse, you don't have anything. And so you start thinking about, okay, we all want to live as long as we possibly can, but we also want to be as healthy as we possibly can. I remember he had mentioned something along the lines, well, if you knew you were going to live 88 years, would you want 87 and a half, the most active you can possibly be, and maybe that last 6 months your body just gives out? Or do you want that last 10, 15 years of just this slow progression into, just a miserable physical life? And of course, nobody wants that, right? And so what are the things that we can be doing, as well as what's happening in the medical community and the advancements that are being made? He's told different stories, and I'm not sure which ones he'll get into, but with the adult stem cell research that's being done, and I don't know if he had seen it, we'll ask him, but I just read an article, I was telling Scott about this, about a whole eye transplant that took 21 hours. And again, it wasn't about getting actual sight back to this gentleman, but it was advancing, everything that's happening in the science of medicine. And so it's fascinating. We all want to live that healthy life as long as we possibly can. I said, well, who better than the expert of Dr. Carlin?
Fantastic. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we of course want to welcome Dr. Dan Carlin to the show. Dr. Dan, thank you for spending some time and carving some time out for us of your busy schedule.
Great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Ryan. Nice to see you, Matt. It's been a while. Good to see you. Scott, nice to meet you too.
You too.
Thank you, Matt, for remembering the fundamental lesson, right? There's no wealth if you don't have a pulse, okay? There's no enjoyment of life. There's no family. All the things that we value and treasure, if you haven't protected that most fundamental thing, which is your lifespan, you've got it backwards. Right, you've got things in the wrong order. So I'm going to stop there before I go off on a tear. Ryan, I'm super happy to be here. I want to make sure that I answer your questions and bring up the topics that you want to discuss. Left to my own devices, I can wander freely across the whole longevity landscape, etc. But I don't think you want that. So let's move in.
All good, all good. Well, let's start kind of high level then today, Dr. Carlin. Why don't you give us a little bit about your background and how World Clinic came about in your life?
Sure. So I'm a former naval officer and a board certified emergency physician. About 25 years ago, I started a telemedicine practice for ships. When I started, we were using shortwave radios, and then the internet started a little bit, and I say a little bit because back then we dealt with a bandwidth of maybe 27 kilobits per second, which is about 1/1000th or 1/10,000th of what we have now. But it was an exciting time, and not surprisingly, we started getting super yachts as clients, and we would take care of super yachts. This was around 1998, 1999. By 2007, our principal clients of the practice were the families who owned the super yachts. And there was a little bit of a learning curve, but it was pretty straightforward. What they wanted was an accountable physician on a moment's notice from anywhere in the world where they were. And this physician would step in and initiate care telemedically, if you will, but then manage a case to its completion. That was the first value proposition. Help me respond to a new problem and make it happen fast. And by the way, I'm literally in Timbuktu or Mali or Singapore or Moscow. Okay, so we built the model. And fortunately, we were able to keep up with the internet. Things took a huge leap forward a few years ago with the advent of the smartphone. And we've built an entire system around an access point around the smartphone. And here's the problem. When you prevent these sort of preventable deaths, which we were quite good at, my background, emergency medicine, that's what we do for a living, right? You do a good job at that. The next natural question is, hey, how can you maximize my lifespan so we don't even have that conversation about me having a heart attack in Moscow? So how are we going to do that? So I got very interested in that about 8 or 9 years ago, and looking at it from a biologics molecular basis. What's going on? And Matt, I've shared this at some of the conferences that we've shared together. But what's going on is your body ages through a very specific mechanism called oxidative injury or free radical injury. But what it really means is that your cells are aging, and they age faster when they're exposed to the wrong things that force the cell to keep up with an excessive amount of metabolism, if you will. Metabolism creates free radicals. Free radicals it's not Jerry Garcia or Angela Davis. It's a free electron that's bouncing around a cell, and it collides with things like DNA. And when you damage DNA, of course, you set up a cancer risk. Or maybe it collides with the mitochondria. Mitochondria die and the cell dies. Now you're setting up a scarring situation, which leads to things like atherosclerosis and kidney failure. But the common cause is, how do we prevent the cellular injury? So I got very interested in that. And now we look at longevity strategies. It's all about protecting that individual cell from the mechanisms of injury. Now, again, I can freely wander into dark corners about how to do that, and I want to keep us on a level plane here. But there's some fairly simple strategies, and then some very advanced, I'm not quite sure of strategies yet. But let me pause there and see which way you would like to take this for your audience.
So I'm kind of curious with the free radicals and the mitochondria. So a really good friend of mine who is a health and fitness performance speaker and travels the world about this, and the health of the mitochondria. And so I remember you talking about, if you're going to exercise, right? Weight training is the fountain of youth, we hear, but you hear people who will do I'm going to do 100-miler, right? The ultra marathon, and too much, quote unquote, too much exercise might be more damaging than beneficial, because now you're creating too many free radicals. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, you absolutely are. You absolutely are. Look, our cells are designed to respond to load, but just for the record, genetically, load was things like walking 20 miles to get a fish, or working all day long in the sunshine to harvest a field. It was never running 75 miles straight. And that particular example, your tremendous amount of metabolic activities going on in mitochondria, powering those muscles, converting glycogen to glucose. You run out of glycogen, now you start breaking down muscle and breaking down fat to feed more glucose to keep those muscles running. But these muscles are now running, and the very act of burning glucose at the cellular level creates free radicals. And again, we're pretty good at managing a modest free radical load. It's when we exceed the ability of the cell to absorb the free radical load that we start to do damage. Running 75 miles is no question in my mind that fundamentally damages your cells, damages your body. It can also dangerously overdevelop muscles like your heart. We have a neighbor who's an ultra marathoner who sadly passed away from an overdeveloped, basically a huge left ventricle that became so big because it made perfect sense when he was running 30 miles a day. And then he unfortunately ran up a mountain, exceeded his ventricle's capacity, and passed away. And this is the last guy on earth you'd think that would pass away in a body fat of like 0, an extraordinary ability, but he overdeveloped his heart. This was a direct result of damage that he caused with these 75 extreme exertion things.
So what would you say people should be doing, right? And instead of going that route, I know you talk about the Mediterranean diet and a few things, what are things that people can be doing now, like you're referencing earlier, to kind of have that, quote unquote, healthier lifestyle? I don't know why I said quote unquote, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, well, we all know the things, but what are the things that you're recommending to people to have that, wonderful life?
Let's do the simple stuff first, and then we'll get into some interesting corners of longevity. The simple stuff works, and we call it the Mediterranean diet, but what is it really? It's healthy fats, a little bit of carb, and protein every day, a little bit of protein every day, okay? That's what we're talking about. And it's not 5,000 calories a day of the Mediterranean diet, it's about 2,500. So, nobody wants to hear this, but calories a calorie, dude, in the sense that too many calories, you're going to put on weight. And it doesn't matter if it came from protein or fat or glucose or sugar, pastries, pasta, I don't care. A calorie is a calorie. And when you take in more than you burn, you create, you store fat. So, okay. So Mediterranean diet, 2,500 calories a day. You want to lose weight, cut it down to 2,000. You want to really lose weight, cut it down to 1,200. Okay. But let's not get carried away with that, because weight loss itself is not so great when we're older. This is something I feel pretty passionate about. When we get older, losing weight is tricky because we'll actually consume our own muscle mass as part of this weight loss process. We'll burn up our fat, but we'll also take muscle. And as opposed to when we're 16, 17, 20 years old, we can build muscle right back up in relation to, if we want to, eat more protein, exercise a lot, and your muscle's going to come back. That doesn't happen in older people. We don't rebuild muscle. So you have to be very conscious, and I'm going to take you into this corner of medicine for a minute. You don't want to lose muscle. Okay, I know you want to lose weight. Not a problem. We're going to cut back calories, yes, but we're not going to cut back protein. You need protein every day, twice a day, probably around 40 grams. What is that? That's like a small sausage patty, 1 egg, okay? But you got to have it every day. Your body, as we get older, again, we have this natural attrition rate of our muscles. And unless we keep up with protein so the body can easily rebuild muscle as it's lost, we will lose more muscle over time. There's an inevitability to it, but if you want to slow the muscle loss, a little bit of protein every day. Notice I didn't say 4 hamburgers and 10 sausage patties.
Right.
No, you're just going to burn that off. And again, calories a calorie. But I do want everyone north of 55 to be aware, protein twice a day, breakfast meal and the dinner meal, can actually forestall and slow down the loss of muscle. Okay, part 1. Let's talk about weightlifting for a second. Lightweight's good. Heavier weights, a little better. Extremely heavy weights, very bad, right? I literally have patients who are coming to me at 65 and they're doing clean and jerk, right? These maneuvers with 180, 200 pounds. I'm like, are you out of your mind? You have a spine to protect, you have hip joints to protect, your elbow joints. We're not doing that anymore, but we are doing curls, right? We're doing curls 15, 20, 22 pound to the point of exhaustion and drop the weight, right? We're doing leg lifts with maybe against resistance bands, but we are loading these muscles. We are forcing them to do their job, and we're taking them to a point of near failure or at least exhaustion. And you know when your muscles are exhausted, like that last rep, like, okay, put them down. You don't, look, you're not 19, okay? But take them to that point of fatigue, put them down. The benefits are very clear here, okay? Your muscles are going to last longer and your skeleton's going to be stronger, okay? This is super, super important. I see tons of osteopenia, basically washed out bones. How come? You're not moving around anymore. We're not resisting anything, right? So we need to resist, like we're doing modest weights. We're not doing 100 repetitions. We're doing 12 to 20, somewhere in that range. And that should be your guide of what weight you should be lifting. If you're exhausting between 12 and 20, you're in the right range. If you're exhausting at 60 or 70, you're in the wrong range. Okay. So that's my corner about that. Can I give you one more thing?
Oh yeah,
we
yeah,
leave?
definitely. Yeah.
All right. This is a fun thing to watch, and I'm just starting to see it pop up all over the longevity space. It has to do with balance. You know, our balance as we move through the three-dimensional world of stairs and steps and hillsides and you name it, right? Three things are working: our eyes and our middle ear, right? Which is a position sensor in your middle ear. And then there's actually little position sensors on the bottom of your feet called proprioceptors. These three things, eyes, middle ear, proprioceptors, this is what keeps us on our feet. Unfortunately, they tend to degrade over time, right? When they degrade, you can kind of see what's coming. You're going to fall because your balance stinks. And fall is, I think, number 3 or number 4 in cause of death now in older people. Took a fall, usually hit your head. And when I was an ER doctor, I saw this every day of my career. An older person falling, hitting their face, etc. So what I'm seeing now in the longevity community is a very specific and deliberate effort at preserving balance. So you see people on these roly-polies. You've seen these things, right? It's a board. It sits on a cylinder. When you first get on it, you have sort of 2 little walking sticks to keep you on the board. And your body wants to wobble and wobble and wobble, and you're all over the place. We give that 2 or 3 days. You don't need the sticks. You're training your cerebellum, the proprioceptors. You're re-engaging these 3 fundamental elements of balance. And what a shock when you call in them to do their job. They do their job. Now you're seeing an absolute radical improvement in your balance. I'm not saying you have to go as crazy as that classic roly-poly board, but we have patients that stand on a board that has a dome underneath it, a half dome, convex dome, right? And all I want them to do is keep them from falling down and touching the board on the floor. And again, I start them with a little stick or a cane, and you'd be amazed. Within 2 days, they're on that thing, wiggling around, playing some music, and the board is staying upright. I'm like, what is going on here? It's like, it's your body, man. It's, you call on it to do a job, and it does it. And I love this. I have to tell you, I love this. I look at it like clinically. I've been in the trenches on elderly falls, and it's tough. Broken hip, smashed face, broken nose, subdural hematoma, you name it. If I can forestall that, I love it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If you don't, then you can tell people who haven't done that, because you start to end up getting that shuffle, right? Because then it's the fear of the fall.
You got it. The fear of the fall. They start doing that broad-gazed shuffle as they move along. So I love the balance thing. Sort of a side note to the balance thing. There seems to be a connection with everyday drinking and a gradual accelerated erosion of the balance, of the neurologic wiring to the proprioceptors on your feet. to a lesser degree your middle ear, a lesser degree of your eye. And this is a part of longevity, Matt, is that you really want to live a long life, you probably don't want to drink.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a hard truth. I hate to say, and boy, do I love beer in the summer. Oh my goodness, or a glass of wine at Thanksgiving. But these become special events as opposed to daily events.
Right.
It's the daily consumption of alcohol. Man, that's tough. That's tough on neurologically. It's tough on you. It's basically it's a poison, a very pleasurable poison, but it's a poison. If you want to go long, you limit the alcohol too.
Got it.
Dr. Carlin, you alluded back to a time when people were hunters and gatherers, basically, and that was enough to keep the body strong and healthy. We didn't have the exercise machines. We didn't think that we didn't think to actually exercise. We just did it as a normal course of living. How important is that today? If I'm out, for example, mowing my lawn as opposed to riding a mower, I'm pushing that mower. Or if I'm walking a couple of miles a day with my wife, as opposed to running a half marathon. How important are those things today, as opposed to, like you said, you were talking about a lifting regiment, the balance and things like that. Can some of those things be accomplished just by an active lifestyle?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Scott. You guys are probably familiar with the blue zones. Have you heard of this term, blue zones? These are areas of the world where people routinely live to be 100. Like, what is going on here? Oh, they're just lucky genetically. It's like, no, some of these places is a huge genetic mix going on. Why are they living to be 100? And Scott, here it is. Really simple. You want to live a long life, you're moving every day. Most of these places are mountainous, okay? Not all of them. Like Okinawa is not that mountainous, but certainly Sicily is, right? You're walking every day to the market. You're going up the village, you're going down the village, right? Also, these are places that are not blessed with massive amounts of unlimited cheap food. Food is a premium. It's incredibly important, but somewhat expensive or difficult to get. So we're looking at people who are naturally eating in complete balance. They don't overeat because they can. They actually can't, but they are doing 2,000 to 3,000 calories a day, right? And now here's the final advantage, and this is why I love what you just said. The final easy piece of longevity is it's social. This is super important. You walk with your wife. You go see your friends, right? You're doing something together. You're playing 9 holes of golf. I hope you're walking, or maybe you have a caddy. But even if you're not, even if you're in the golf cart, keep the golf carts on the path. You're walking to the ball, whatever it may be. The point is, you're moving, and it's fun because you're with people that you want to be with, right? And this is really important. If you don't enjoy your exercise, I assure you it has a limited lifespan itself. At a certain point, you're not enjoying it. It's like, oh, I got to chuck this. So when you think about strategy for exercise, you have to make it enjoyable. You have to make it enjoyable. You like hiking? Go hiking, man. That's good. You'll live forever if you're a good hiker and you enjoy it and it's a happy thing for you. Absolutely. You like cutting the grass or whatever it is, please do that. Again, a calorie is a calorie. I want you to burn as many as you can, but I also want you to do it in a situation where you know you're going to do it over and over and over again. It becomes a habit as opposed to do this for a month or two and I hate it and then I quit it. Pleasurable habits have the tendency to endure. So connect your exercise to pleasurable habit.
Noted. So if we can kind of shift a little bit, I believe we've had the discussion that our current healthcare system is much more reactive than proactive. And so how does someone like you in the World Clinic, if I go for my annual physical, I can't tell you the last time I actually saw the doctor, right? It's the PA every time. And so So how do people, what are the benefits of concierge medicine, and how does that integrate with your current, primary care physician, or, kind of talk about that a little bit, if you would, please.
Yeah, boy, there's so many things in trouble in the US healthcare system right now, Matt. Let's just start with the fact we've lost almost a generation of older primary care physicians to COVID, burnout, exhaustion, and unfortunately, relative poverty. Meaning, and by relative poverty, I mean family practitioner is making 1/8, 1/10, 1/20th of a busy orthopedic surgeon. And they all endured almost the same training. Orthopedic might have a year or two more residency training. And this is true in internal medicine and family practice. And these were the folks who always sort of stood as the entry point and then organized things and figured out, okay, I think I know what's wrong with you. Let me assign the specialist. They were a triage tool. They treated the simple stuff, and they kept an eye on the longevity stuff like blood pressure, diabetes, blood sugar, depression, these chronic conditions. They're almost gone now. Within the conventional healthcare system, access to them is quite limited because there's so few of them. And we've tried to replace them with what they call mid-level practitioners, nurse practitioners, and PAs, many of whom are quite good. But just to be clear, 5 years of training as a nurse and to become a nurse practitioner, no classic board certification or residency program. They're not equivalent. They're not even close to being equivalent. I mean, a guy like me has to get through 4 massive examinations before I call myself board certified in emergency medicine. This doesn't exist in the world of mid-levels, where it's not as highly developed. There are places to get certificates, etc. But in medicine, to call yourself a doctor, it's tough and it's long. Call yourself a nurse practitioner in PA, it's not tough, it's not long. There are some programs that are 100% video-based with no clinical training at all. And you graduate, I'm a nurse practitioner. At that point, you can go see patients with having never seen a patient before in real life, okay? I'm gonna get off that wagon because I know a ton of wonderful PAs and nurse practitioners. A whole bunch of them actually work for us. They're amazing. They love their work, they're so dedicated. But I'm just saying it's different now. Okay, so what do, right? You need a primary care physician. You absolutely positively have to have one. There are so few, and so you got to follow the money, right? And follow the money means you got to find a concierge physician who's incentivized to take care of you, who's incentivized to do a good job so you will renew their contract, and this physician can make a living next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. This concierge physician should be responsive, holistic, thoughtful, a great listener, and have enough time. This is what you can't get in the current healthcare system, right? This is what you want to buy in a private medical system, a concierge system, or private practice model, right? These are starting to promulgate, but the truth is they're not as widespread as they could be, because your average retired person doesn't have $2,000 a year or $10,000 a year to pay a great concierge physician. They don't have it. So they're inside the conventional healthcare system with their Medicare insurance, and they're overwhelming the healthcare system. Because remember, the baby boom is now they're retiring, right? I'm sort of at the tail end of it. And I'm going to be 65 next year. There's like 70 million retirees in front of me, recent retirees in front of me, and they're overwhelming the system. So things are getting scarce on the primary care front. So I'm a big fan of concierge medicine if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, then you've really got to pay attention to the longevity stuff, the everything that we have previously discussed, and you've got to pay attention to the conditions you have, whether it be hypertension or obesity, and it's on you to now get them under control.
And if But with the concierge medicine, you're the, you know, I don't want to say the pioneer, but the pioneer of the telehealth, right? And that's how you deal with it with your clients. And so if someone calls, they're going to get a physician on the phone in less than 30 seconds, correct?
Correct.
Who's
Yep.
going to know everything about me and
Yep.
be able to spend the time with me to say, oh, here's what's going on. Like I know with your group, you have the personal prescription kit, right? So
Yep.
that, and I know we don't have time today, but you've told stories about how that literally has saved people's lives with someone calling in and, you know, speaking with a physician while you're traveling in some foreign land or even locally. Whereas
Yep.
you call, like I say, you try to make your annual physical and, hey, we could probably see you in 6 months. Or,
Yeah.
you know, like you said, hey, heaven forbid there's something more serious, it, you know, it could be
You're
fatal.
in trouble.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. You think was a very odd freckle, and you can see a dermatologist in 3 months. And the dermatologist says, hey, I'm really sorry, this is a melanoma. I wish I'd seen you 3 months ago. Oh man, really? Yeah. In our world, I'm just going to talk about World Clinic and try not to be self-promoting, but we're trying to restore some really basic things. Access, reasonably fast access. In our case, it's ultra fast because this clientele is exceedingly mobile. And frankly, they don't care about money anymore. It's all about time. Time is their fundamental currency for the balance of their lives. I don't want to waste time. I don't want to get pulled into things that waste, take away my time. I have better things to do with my time. So we respond in that dynamic, make things happen fast. This clientele also looks for total accountability. They're looking for someone completely trustworthy because they're handing off a serious problem and they want it dealt with. So those are probably the two big things that we're really focusing on. Now, Matt, we started out primarily as an emergency medicine-ish practice. So everybody had a small personal prescription medical kit that we gave them. It's about the size of 2 VCR tapes. I'm dating myself. But it has 16 prescription meds in it, including nitroglycerin for chest pain, right? And EpiPen for bee sting allergies, and et cetera. But you had these meds, we could take care of you anywhere in the world and at least slow down a crisis. Now, it's 20 years later, and the clients are 20 years older. So we actually hired this year a full-time senior internal medicine physician because we're great at emergencies, but now we need to be great at managing chronic conditions. People with recurrent problems, whether it's depression, right? Hypertension, chronic pain, chronic sinusitis, all kinds of GI conditions, colitis, ulcerative colitis, migraines, all of this stuff. These are chronic conditions. And it's unfortunate, if you have a chronic condition, the system is really not set up to help you. Because you need a good primary continuous presence in your life, and you can't get that in the system as it exists now. Certainly not at a physician level. You can't get that level of provider. So we're seeing this as, okay, we're all 20 years older. I started this in my 40s, and like I said, I'm pretty mid 60s now. So now it's time to broaden the scope of the practice, and we have a senior internist. We have 2 family practitioners. Our internist is also an expert in geriatric medicine. Never saw that 20 years ago, but it's a perfect and normal evolution of this care model. It's like, we used to do great at urgent care ER medicine. Now we need to manage chronic illness better and stay much closer to the patients and have that access. And we're starting to do a lot more monitoring of chronic conditions. We people with congestive heart failure, we weigh these people every day, stay right on top of their fluid balance so they can never overload themselves by accident and throw themselves into heart failure, which is a dangerous thing, right? It's incredible. You do this well, you figure out what you need to monitor every day, and you monitor the heck out of it, and then manage closely. A lot of these chronic conditions never have a chance to flare up. I think that's going to be a big part of the future of medicine, that particular type of monitor and manage from a distance around a key metric.
We want to be respectful of your time. If you have time for one more, which kind of ties into exactly what you're saying, you hear a lot. I have some friends who have done it and some clients who have done kind of the executive summary. You know, you go to Mayo or Cleveland Clinic and they'll do the full day MRI, you spend X amount. And I know there's some more and more places popping up, but don't you run the issue of sometimes doing those of, you know, false positives or false negatives? And so what would you have people do? Are those a good thing? Or, you know, what would you have people do, you know, to kind of maybe quote unquote catch those things, whether it's the, you know, sequencing of your DNA to say, oh yeah, you're predisposed, you know. You know, if you can, you know, in the short time, again, I want to be respectful of your time.
There's a ton of stuff out there, these sort of one-day medical events. Now, I'll tell you, I love an executive physical. In particular, I love an executive physical done by the Mayo Clinic or Cedars-Sinai, because the information is incredibly well organized. And we have a bunch of patients that cycle in and out of the Mayo Clinic in their executive health program every year. It's wonderful because you get this incredibly detailed snapshot. And that's the hard part. It's a great day in the life of picture of one day in the life of, right? But it's pretty darn good information. The tricky part is, and this is the essential part, you have to couple that with then ongoing access, and someone, provider, is going to respond to whatever was found to be pathologic in your executive physical. There's always something in there like, hey, you got a nodule in your chest. Yeah, we don't think it's cancer, but you should have a CT scan in 6 months to make sure it's not. Okay, that's good medicine. Who's going to make that happen?
Right.
Right? You're like, whose job is that? Who picked up that should be on a calendar somewhere? Now you've left Cedars-Sinai, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, whatever it is, and they're not the ones that are going to, you know, you came in for your one-day event, you had it, now you're gone. They're not picking up the details, if you will. So it's marrying an executive physical with a really good primary care, concierge care, or connected concierge like me. That's a very, very effective solution. You know, you sample everything once a year, identify your problem areas, manage the heck out of them, monitor them very closely. And that's pretty much healthcare in heaven. That's as good as it gets.
So
Yeah.
how would someone, Dr. Carlin, reach out to you or take that next step to add that kind of care to their life? Sure.
So fairly straightforward. I mean, we have a wonderful website, worldclinic.com. Certainly, and the website's got all kinds of interesting information and little media stuff. It's great. Alternatively, you can shoot me an email, or actually shoot it to Jeff Carr. Jeff is our business guy. Jeff will have the bandwidth to take your email. So send it to jcarr, JCARR, at worldclinic.com. And I assure you, Jeff is the world's most diligent man. When someone has an inquiry, it will end up in front of one of our doctors the same day. So shoot Jeff an email. He'll get you plugged into us. We're always happy to have a conversation. You know, we often start our conversations with someone who says, hey, I have a problem. What do you think? You know, I was told I have this. What do you think? And we're always glad to give you 15 minutes to point you in the right direction. Notice I said 15 minutes, though. We can't turn into a 2-hour consult. That's right. Hard for us. But you'd be amazed at how much common sense you can impart to someone in 15 minutes and get them pointed in the right direction. And look, sometimes what we do makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, and I've had this conversation with people say, you need a concierge physician in your town driving distance to your house, who is affiliated with the hospital that you go to, because you're not going to need just primary care. You're going to need specialist care and someone to ride herd on it very closely. So I'll send them back. And in some cases, we'll help them find someone, that kind of thing. But World Clinic is not the solution to everybody. It is a good solution if you're in motion, you have multiple homes, and you want immediate, instant accountability, but not everybody needs that. So, okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. I could ask 50 more questions about all the stuff that you've touched on, but we've taken way too much of your time already. So thank you very much for being here. We greatly appreciate it, as do our clients.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Alrighty, folks, there we have it. Dr. Daniel Carlin, founder and CEO of World Clinic, joining us here on the podcast today. Great conversation surrounding, gosh, I've felt like a lot really with regard to healthcare, concierge medicine, where healthcare is even kind of going in the future, and what you really should be considering for yourself. Guys, I'll throw it over to you. What were some of your big takeaways? Scott, let's start with you. What was one of your big takeaways from Dr. Carlin today?
For a lot of my clients, watching me age over the time that I've had that relationship with them, I look at them, look across at me, and wonder how long I'm going to be around sometimes. And what I came away from this was some of the things I hate the most is what I'm looking forward to the most right now when it comes to modern health and medicine, because the idea of all the technology that we've had to navigate through, I think this is one place where virtual medicine is going to make a lot of sense, just by the sheer fact that there's not as many, family medicine doctors available, as he alluded to earlier on. I'm wondering what's going to happen when my primary physician retires. What am I going to be left with? So this gives me some hope that, even though it might be on more virtual, more, technical based, the idea that I have instant access to somebody is refreshing. It's something to feel good about.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, what about you?
Ryan, having spoken with and seen Dr. Carlin speak multiple times, it comes back to, and I don't know if he was the one, whoever said it, it's, a person with their health has 1,000 dreams, and a person who doesn't have their health has but one. Right. And so of all the things that we should be doing, knowing that you could have someone like a Dr. Carlin or his group, or, someone in your community that can help you navigate these potential issues that you might have, or help you reach that, unbelievable physical life that you can have, and mental life, which would even touch on the mental health aspect of everything that's happening. Knowing that, like Scott was saying, with the technology of a telehealth, right? Someone that you can have that relationship with, instead of someone walking in the room going, "Oh, who is this again? You're Ryan, right? You've been to that practice 15 times," and they're like, it's like you've met him for the first time, and what are you here for? Sore throat. Okay, there you go. Right. Or whatever the case may be. So, he didn't get into it and wouldn't want to a whole lot, but, I don't want to say the system is broken. There's a lot of great people that work in the system, but as he alluded to, with 70 million baby boomers, there's not enough resources, with the number of family practice physicians that are retiring, as well as not enough coming, down the road. There's a lot going on in the system, but having someone or a group like that in your corner is only going to benefit you. And so knowing that there's a lot that can be done, it's not this, oh, woe was me, and, bury your head in the sand. There's a lot that we all can do personally, as well as then have someone like that in our corner.
Very much so. Dr. Carlin, just a brilliant mind. I mean, we could just let him go, frankly. I mean, just
Right.
so easy to listen to, and just so much knowledge, up there. And
What'd you take away?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, it just kept coming back. I just kept hearing the word brought up, and it really was kind of an exclamation mark on any time we spoke to it, was access. Having the access to be able to have someone who, like you said, Matt, somebody who isn't going to treat you like the urgent care clinic may, or maybe even your primary physician's team may, where, oh, what do you have, a sore throat? Oh, okay, great. Or they're looking back at your chart to refamiliarize themselves with you rather than just knowing you and knowing your health. That is a big part of it, but then the access part of it is also equally as big. I mean, we all hear of these stories, maybe from family, friends, and whatnot, where you're traveling and something happens, something that you could really use your physician's insight on, and you got to play. You got to go through the secretary or the receptionist and hope that they're in and hope they have time to talk to you. But when you leverage a concierge medical solution, the ability to have that access to your physician who knows you like the back of their hand, is just an unbelievable piece of value for you, your family, your overall health. So, really an interesting topic when you dig into the benefits of concierge medicine. And I think Dr. Carlin did a really nice job of putting that on display, obviously kind of on a surface level today. Cause I mean, if we got deep into the weeds here, we need several hours with Dr.
Right.
Carlin. But man, the benefits of concierge medicine just almost feel endless. I feel like.
One last thing I think that I came away from feeling very excited about was, in our own practice, having developed a professional network, that word coordination, where we're coordinating financial professionals, whether it be a CPA or an estate planning attorney, and ourselves, but ourselves knowing that client intimately enough to be able to coordinate those kind of benefits around them, plays very well to the same kind of thing that we're talking about here with our health. Where somebody like a Dr. Carlin being able to coordinate specialists and coordinate people that, can be more targeted to whatever your particular, health issue is. I just think that that's, again, where the technology is really going to be in our favor in the future, where we're going to have the ability to coordinate those kind of things.
Agreed. And guys, I know you have conversations with your clients regularly, yes, about wealth management solutions and their goals for life, and how those solutions, how their financial plan will allow them to achieve those goals. But look, those goals are nothing without their health. And that is obviously a very, very important factor in some of those goal related conversations. So for anybody out there in our audience that benefited from today's conversation, they took a thing or two away from Dr. Carlin, and would enjoy a conversation, let's say with you guys, to talk about where health plays a role and meets at the intersection of wealth, what would be the best way that they could get in touch with you guys and just open up that dialogue?
Two ways, Ryan. Traditional way, phone call 517-333-7967, or go to our website, morrisonnordman.com, and click on it. You can schedule a 15-minute, kind of similar to what Dr. Carlin was talking about, a 15-minute kind of get to know you call, and see how we can potentially help.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you both. Thanks for carving some time out of your busy schedules. We'll let you get back to serving clients, but we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Have a great day. See you soon, Scott.
All right.
All righty, gentlemen. Well, hey, look, folks, we want to take one final moment, as we always do, and thank you all for stopping by and spending time with us on the podcast today. If you took some value away from today's conversation with Dr. Carlin, make sure you hit that subscribe button then on the platform that you check this out on today, so you don't miss out on future conversations just like these, where we unpack, if it's not wealth management solutions, other interesting conversations with leading professionals out there in the world, so that you and yours can come out better for it on the other side. Before Scott and Matt, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Path to Abundant Living.